Hey everybody, I'm Steph,
Hi, Michael.
and today we're checking out Brazil Imperial.
Yep, and it's from Portal Games. Place 1 to 4 players. Box time says 100 minutes.
Yeah.
And in an amazing twist of fate, Steph is going to be teaching the rules today.
Yes, I did actually just play it last night again for the second time, so I am a little bit more brushed up because we first played it in December, and there's kind of a lot going on in this game. I feel like for fans of Scythe, you'll see a lot of similarities between this one and Scythe, but there are a lot of other dissimilar aspects and mechanics going on, so I can't wait to show it off.
Let's take a look.
Okay, so in Brazil Imperial, you everybody will have their own color, and there's little differences on each board, like which military units you might have to deploy. Everybody also will start with um, an advisor that they get to choose which side they want to use. So Michael and I have already chosen somebody to play as, so that's exciting. We haven't.
Notice that I've got 3 Templar figures.
Oh yeah,
You've got two. What are these called?
been
I've got to
I
put on my glasses.
words are hard.
Benderante.
Benderante.
Or, yeah, that's what it
I
is.
think so. But
And
like
I've got a monarch and a cannon. You have a monarch
a
and a
dragon.
no dragoon,
I've got
not a
a
dragon,
dragon.
and a cannon. Where are my dragons?
I have three. We have our action tokens. We have two off to the side, and we have one that we're going to be using because the game actually takes place over 3 eras. And so once we're in era two, we'll get rid of our era one for a bonus and take our era two token. And so later on, we're gonna get into era three. We're gonna get another bonus, and then
Not a bonus.
another bonus, and then we're gonna get our era three. That just represents what era we're in, and that is important because that determines what types of buildings you can build. So if you're in era one, you can only build these types of buildings. And this player board is really nice because it gives you like all of the buildings and everything. So you know that if you're taking this trading post, on the other side is the sawmill, and that tells you in this little banner right here. It also tells you what it's going to cost to build it and what terrain type it's going to have to go on. So the sawmill and the trading post, it has a little tiny wood symbol there, and you can place it next to your capital on one of these little wood spaces here.
It doesn't have to go next to your capital. It can go anywhere, right? I mean,
And
as long as it goes next to a hex that you have built.
yeah, it has to go in your empire, so it branches off. So if your capital is here, it can go in one of these spots. But if it has to go on wood, it would have to go in this space.
I'm saying
Later on, if I have built out over here, I could maybe build over here adjacent to one of my already built
right.
buildings.
Didn't want people to think it had to be next to your house.
Okay, yeah. Anytime you build a building, it has to like grow your empire,
Right.
basically. Um, the only time that changes is with the monarch, but I'll come to the monarch in a minute. We have painting cards on display. We have they're kind of in order of there's the E's, I guess. So there's the red ones and the pink ones and the blue ones. They're going to cost a different number of resources depending on the top left corner. Can you show one of them?
So what am I
Just
showing?
one of these cards.
Okay.
So this guy right here in the top left corner, you'll see that there is a blue resource that's called science. It would cost 1 science in order to buy this. So these are just the painting cards is what they're called. We also have a display over here. We have the combat cards, and we have the gold cards, and we have the city tiles that are available to be purchased starting in Era 2. As you'll see in the Era 2 building, you'll see cities. So those are the city tiles. We've created this map. You'll notice in the back of this rule book, there are a whole bunch of maps to choose from when you do a setup. When you set up the game, you're going to set it up depending on the number of players and how much combat you want. So there are some maps that will have more combat than others. So, for example, for this 4-player game, it's just one combat thing, so it's less combat-y than say one of these other ones over here. So it's just if you want a close, tight map, you're more likely to have more combat. That's all. So you can decide what your group wants to play. For resources, we have gold, we have coffee bean, which is red, we have cotton, which is white, we have sugar cane, which is green, we have wood, which is brown, and we have science, which is the blue.
Science.
Yep. And we also have all the buildings off to the side in stacks that are just over available to us. So we've already set up our player board. You'll see all of our units on the board. You'll see some of these palaces over on the side that we can unlock during the game. I've put them off the board just because it's easier to see and to determine where to build them and the rewards that you get. And we'll go over those in a little bit, but for now, we'll just leave them like that. So the game will start once Michael and I have determined where we're starting on the board. Somebody's going to start the game and take that first action token. From there, we're just going to go around and around and around until the game ends. So as you play the game, you're going to do one action on your turn. When you take a turn, you're going to take your little action marker and determine which action you'd like to choose. If it is already on an action, you cannot choose the same action. So you have to move it to a different location. Um, you'll perform the action, and then you also have a bonus move. You have one free move to move any one of your units on the board one space. You also might have a bonus move if you've taken one of the 5 main actions, and those can move into specific regions depicted on your player board. So, for example, the build action, you can move one of your units into one of your buildings or into a wood terrain for paintings, or into the water. That the into the water is also adjacent to water or the edge of the map. Um, so that free movement, you can move towards the edge of the map or into a water or out of a water space. So those are the movements bonuses. Actually, if you put that back, Michael, sorry. Over on the harbor and trade, you'll see an additional, it's not movement, but it gives you more attacking power or defense if you have your action marker there and you are initiating or defending against a region for combat later. So I'll come back to that, but just know that that is also possible right there. So your player turns, that's how the player turn is going to look. It's pretty snappy, actually. You do one thing and you can move units, and then the next player goes. So you keep going. What are you going for? What are you trying to do? Well, everybody has 3 mission cards. Right at the beginning of the game, you're going to have 2 of each. So Michael has 2. He hasn't selected yet. And you at the beginning of the game, you'll choose one from each era. If you look at one, you can just show any which one. So this one here is from era 1. You will be looking to complete these different things. If you complete all 3 things on this card, you can say, I've completed my mission. Great. By completing your first mission, you will actually trigger the end of era 1. Everybody will choose um, everybody will choose where to put their little upgrade token, and I'll come back to that in a second. And then we're all going to move into era 2. Now, that doesn't mean other players can't complete their missions. Everybody can still complete their missions for era 1. However, they no longer are required to do it. Everybody can start working on era 2 mission cards, and everybody can start building era 2 buildings. So as soon as the first person triggers the end of the era, that will take place. Now, when you do complete an era, you will take one of your palaces and put it on the appropriate space depicted. So they all have different requirements on where they have to go. So, for example, the first one, you can place that little palace right there, and you'll get a reward of the sugar cane, and you'll get to upgrade a product. And it has to go on a level 1 building that you control. Dan says moving into a new era first is not all that anyway.
Having now completed multiple eras first in 2 games and lost in both, I think I'm safe in saying that.
All right. So, but it is important to try and complete it if you can. But it is like he said, not necessary to be the first one to do that. So you'll be working towards completing all of these missions throughout the game. That will kind of give you a goal towards like what should I do in this game? Well, you look at your missions, you can kind of work towards completing these things. So on your turn, you're going to take actions. What are the actions? We have deploy, which is you can deploy one of your units. It was going to cost some number of resources depending on your player board and what unit you want to deploy. So, for example, my first one is just 1 gold coin, but so that's I would put it into one of my cities or capital, and he just starts in one of those positions. So from there, I can start moving him on the board as my free action every turn. You also will get to get a combat card when you do this. So that is what the deploy is. We have painting. Right now, you can build the paintings. They're all on display right there.
You have to build paintings.
Or
You
you
don't
acquire
paintings.
you acquire paintings. So you'll spend the appropriate resources depicted in the top left corner. Sometimes there's just a wild symbol. Any one of the resources that you have can be.
Looks like there's nothing for this one.
He's free. You just got to take the action, and he gives you the reward going forward. A lot of them give you ongoing benefits. Sometimes it's one-time benefit. So, Michael, if you just show one and read it, what's nice about the cards is that they all have text to tell you exactly what it is. So I believe that says +1 combat strength when you are fighting. So if you had that guy. So that's good. And they all provide some number of victory points at the end of the game, pictured in the bottom right corner. So those are painting cards. A lot of missions will have something to do with the painting cards. Some might say 2 blue paintings. So that often happens in like level 3. Or it might have 4 painting cards. So you'll want to get some paintings if you know you have those on your missions. The next action here is build. This is how you can build these buildings over on the side. And it's going to cost some number of resources depicted on your player board. So, for example, the sawmill is going to cost either a sugarcane or a coffee. It's very tiny. It's right below the picture. Or the trading post is going to cost a wood and a sugar or a coffee. And then it's also going to tell you what terrain type you're going to have to place that building on, as we said earlier. So you can build anything from era 1 because that's what era we're in. If we're in era 2, we could also build the gold foundry or the plantation. And yeah, if you have your Marnock on the board,
You didn't talk about Era 3. You can build a church and an academy.
yeah, if you're in era 3, you can build church and academy.
You sort of left off.
Well, I figured. Well, I thought it was self-explanatory, but yes, if we're in era 3, you can build a church or academy as well. If you have your monarch on the board, monarch can be basically anywhere, and you can build a city. City tiles will cost some number of resources pictured on one of the 2 cities on display, so it's going to change per tile. So this one's going to cost one of each of these 4 goods, and you simply place that tile on the space where your monarch is. It can be placed on one of your level 1 or level 2 buildings, on a green hex, on a gold hex, or on a wood hex. So all of those places you can build a city. And it says it right on your player board so you can know that that's happening. Now, again, it doesn't have to be in connection with your empire. She can just be off on the, other part of the city. Like I don't have to have a building here in order to put that down. So that's the only time you can place outside of your empire. You will also place one of these little um, city houses down on that tile just to represent that it's yours. Okay, so that's building. Does that make sense so
Sure.
far? Sure. Great. One more thing with building. When you place a building down, you immediately are going to produce the resources, which is represented by this gear icon on the tile. So if I built that farm, I immediately put 2 coffee down.
And those goods will stay on that tile till you use them.
Yep, so it's part of my empire, therefore they are mine, and therefore um I can use them. They don't come off the board um until you use them. So that's important to know that they stay there. Also, these tokens are not limited; they are unlimited. There's just not all that many of them. But just so you know, you can use substitutes if you needed. There's also these +1 tokens that you can use to help do that. So those will all produce. A lot of the painting cards might boost production. Some of the leader cards will boost production for certain types of buildings. So that's something to look out for. We then have the renovate action. If you have an empty building tile, you can renovate it. You can either produce on it again, or you can flip it over to its opposite side and then immediately produce on that building. Now, the cost, it's going to cost you any one resource in order to renovate. There's a tiny little icon below the renovate symbol here. Um, so you would have to also pay one of anything in order to make that
And
happen.
you do manufacture on that as well?
Immediately,
Okay.
yes. You produce on the
Hmm.
tile that you're renovating immediately. That's the renovate action. Manufacture, this is where you get to um, have upgrades basically. These are products, and you will spend some number of resources to upgrade one of your action spaces. So you choose the product type you want to upgrade, spending the cost, and you will then upgrade one of your actions below, provided it fits in the appropriate slot. So a square must go into a square upgrade, a pentagon has to go into a pentagon, etc. Now, from going forward, you will have a bonus when you take that action. So, for example, if you were to upgrade your manufacture, it will cost you 1 fewer resource when you take this action. When you renovate, it will cost you no extra resources. Um, and so, let's see. The deploy will let you. I don't know if we should go over all of them. We'll just do it. So, the deploy will let you um, get an extra military card, and you can deploy an extra military unit for the cost. The paintings will cost no resource if there's one pictured, or it will cost no coin if there's a coin and a resource cost on the painting itself. And the builds, um, I believe, let me just make sure. Any resource can be used to pay construction costs that normally require specific resources. So you can use whatever resources you want. Um,
And that's just no resources needed and one fewer resource needed.
yep. And then over on Harbor, when you use the Harbor action, you're going to get a resource of your choice. And if it's upgraded, you will gain a gold coin as well. A gold coin card, I should say. So these gold coin cards can be used as a single gold, or you can use it for the reward on the back. And they're all different. There's a bunch of different card types, and they're pretty clear once you draw them. Or Michael can show an example if you want. But
On the gold.
yeah. So I don't know what it says, but
Manufacture one product, paying its cost as an extra action.
so yeah, some of them give you like bonus actions like that, and you can just do an upgrade. It still costs the normal, but it gives you that extra flexibility of doing it when you want. So that's that. When you go to the trade action, you can do any number of trade results. Now, there is a storage limit in your personal supply of 5, so you have to be aware of that. We are going to start with 1 resource in our personal supply from our tile that we draft at the beginning of the game. But other ways to get resources in your supply might be the trade action getting gold or science, um, things like that. Whenever you don't produce on the board, you're going to gain it into your personal supply. So keep that in mind that your storage limit is 5
Storage of what?
resources in your personal supply, not on the board, but just in your personal supply.
And where do you get those?
Um, like if you do the trade action, if you
Oh,
trade like a wood for a gold, that's going to go to your personal supply. But you can do any number of trades that you want. Some other cards might give you like for example, I think this painting card gives you a blue science token. So if you were to gain that blue science token, it's going to go to your personal supply.
Dan has a correction. I think it's on painting. Replaces gold with a resource cost for painting, I think.
I'll check. I thought it was cancel it, but I'll look. Acquire paintings with the printed cost of 1 gold for 1 resource. Acquire paintings with a printed cost of 1 resource for free. So yeah, instead of paying a gold, you pay a resource. You're right. Sorry, I said that wrong. Okay, we talked about the movements. You're going to get the bonus movements for the action you selected. And then you also get your free movement at the same time. Um, when you start collecting gold in science, you can use gold as any one basic resource. You can use science as any other resource. These are, I guess, these are called assets, and then these ones are called resources. So science can be used as a gold or any of the resources.
Which
Gold,
ones are basic?
the yellow, I'm sorry, the white, the red, the green, and the brown.
Got it.
Cotton,
Everything in the
yeah, in this little picture right
everything
there.
in the little.
Yeah, those are the basic
And
resources.
the gray there is really
Yep.
sort of see it when I turn it to the side.
So just so you're aware that the gold can be used as basic. Okay, building cities. They all have 5 points on them, so it's something to be aware of. All these other buildings will have points on them at the end of the game. This is important because if I had this in play, it's 3 points at the end of the game. However, if Michael wanted to come and try and take this building over, it actually acts as 3 strength for defending that tile. So let's talk a little bit about combat. Um, well, so Michael, if you don't mind putting one of your units on there. Anytime Michael were to come into a building or an area that I control, it immediately initiates a combat for us. When we have a combat, that again, that's my base strength. His base strength is whatever victory points are printed under his unit. So is that a 2 or so that would be a 2 to a 3. I also, well, Michael, as the attacker, determines how many cards he's going to play, how many combat cards he's going to play. He can play up to 3. His hand limit of combat cards is also 3. Once he tells me what he's going to play, I can then decide how I want to respond, and I can also play up to 3. And then we reveal the cards and determine the outcome. A lot of the cards might have extra strength or might have some sort of outcome if a result is positive. There's a lot of different things that might take place. Here's an example of one.
If you lose the combat, your opponent keeps only 1 unit on that space. The rest are defeated and +1 combat strength.
Yeah. So there's a ton of different types of combat cards that you can possibly use, and if he wins, that tile now technically belongs to him. If the game just ended, he would get the 3 points at the end of the game for it. However, it is still considered part of my empire, meaning he cannot build off of it from there. If at any moment he moves off, it's now back in my possession. I would then regain control of this building. So that is that. Um, If you move into a region, if I am exploring and I go into a region with clouds, I take it and look at it and then determine if I can keep it. A lot of these exploration tiles are have conditions upon it. So some of them might say if you build here, you gain 2 points. So most of the time it just flips up and stays there. Some of the tiles have a combat strength. If there is a tile with combat strength, you reveal it and you stay in the hex that you came from. You will have to then move in next turn in order to overcome it. And you'll have to have equal or greater combat strength using combat cards, using your strength, so any bonuses you have from paintings, etc. So if you were to explore a region that has a combat strength required, you cannot do it on this turn. You would have to wait till your next turn to do it. I had to look that one up on BGG because that was not clear yesterday when we played. So I think that's about it. So, are there any questions?
Mm-mm.
Right now, Michael needs to decide which missions he's going to use.
None of them match.
No, okay.
It's really bad.
Let me talk about these palaces. So the first one, again, when you complete a mission card, you're going to get a palace. The first one, you'll get a sugar cane, and you'll get to upgrade either one of these cubes here. The second one, you'll get a gold card, and you'll get +1 for each of your gold foundries at the end of the game. It has to be placed on a level 1 or level 2 buildings. The next palace has to be placed on a cotton field. You'll gain a cotton immediately. You'll also get +2 points per cotton field that you own at the end of the
You
game.
made a plantation.
A plantation. And then the next one is the farm. You'll get +1 point for all of your product upgrades you've done. And then the next one has to be placed on a city, and you get a combat card, and you'll get +1 point for each of your militaries that you have on the board at the end of the game. Whoa,
Whoops.
I dropped it. Michael,
Check the floor for game rules.
Michael will decide where he wants.
I'll just keep this side, I guess. It's all the same.
What you want to start over there?
Sure.
Okay. So you'll start the game with a wood.
And you start with one of anything?
Yeah, I choose. So I have a special ability. Mine says for the first painting acquired in each color, I gain a resource, a gold, and a science, respectively. Um, so I should probably get. I'm gonna get as green. So once we move into era 2, you're gonna choose where to put your era 1 upgrade. So now if I put it under build, every time I take a build, I can look at one of these foggy areas on the board. Once we go into era 3, I can put this era 2 upgrade under something, and I'll start getting combat cards every time I take that action. So that's what that is. The game ends once the third era has been completed by one player. We finish the round, and that is it. So if I do it,
And obviously, this just means end of game, right?
yeah. So if I complete era 3, the game will just end after my turn. If Michael completes era 3, I will get one more turn because Michael is starting the game. So I put my you have a castle to place.
Boom.
Okay, I think we're good.
Sure. I am Tiberica, Sentinel of the Land. For the first 3 buildings on Forest, collect the first time a resource, the second time a gold, the third time a science.
Cool.
So that seems good.
Um do we want to do a separate video?
It's up to you.
Okay, sure.
Sure.
All right, so that was the initial setup for our game. We are going to come right back with the full playthrough.
Yep. And if you're following us on YouTube, then be sure to follow us and check us out on Wednesdays and Sundays at 5 p.m. Central on twitch.tv/BoardGamerSteph.